Good evening, digital missionaries. I am so happy to see so many of you here tonight. That's awesome. You've come from different places. You've driven, some of you, from very far away lands to get here, to get through some of you took I-75. Some of you were more adventurous and took the back roads to get here sooner and saw all the cows as you got here. But I'm so happy that you're here. Tonight is the beginning of our second annual Digital Missions Lab. If you've been with us for a while, this started out as a youth evangelism catalyst years ago before COVID, where we brought in different people to be able to share how we can become wise and when we do digital missionary work. Well, as time went by and after COVID, we saw that it wasn't just young people that were interested in doing this, but people of all ages. And so we said, you know what, let's change it. Let's make it into a digital missions lab where everyone from different ages can come together and share with one another as we move forward and trying to hit the landscape of the billions of people all over the world, and some of them in your community that need to learn more about what God is doing in your lives, what God is doing in the life of your church, and what God can do through you. And so we're excited that you have taken this venture with us as we begin this year. And I'm so happy to be able to share with you that we have some amazing presenters this year. Some of them you'll be able to connect with really well because this is the kind of stuff that you want to do. Some of them you'll learn some stuff, but may not be like the things that you want to do exactly in your church. But from all of them, I can guarantee you that you will get a glimmer of understanding of how you can become a better person in what you do or for what you want to do as a digital missionary. And so we're happy that you're here with us. Just want to give you a brief orientation of what's happening tonight in our sessions here together. If you have your booklet, I want to let you know that this is a great handy booklet to know what's happening. There's a schedule in there. You'll notice that there's an insert in there. At the printing of this book, we have forgotten to put in the correct handles for our social media handles. So we put the insert for that if you're interested in following us on any of those handles inside of this booklet for you to follow us on Twitter and whatever else is there. Or not Twitter, but X, formerly known as Twitter. All right, anyways. So it'll be all in here, information for you to have. In the sessions that we have as general sessions, it'll be right here at the times that are indicated. The only time that we're not meeting in this room will be during our worship service tomorrow morning and our panel question and answer time at the end of tomorrow afternoon. We'll have that inside the sanctuary. But other than that, all the general sessions will be in this place, including our lunch tomorrow afternoon. And so just want to let you know that this is the main room to be in. Now, in our breakout rooms, there'll be rooms in different areas Sabbath afternoon where you can go to for that. In this book, there's lab questions. So during the presentation, you're going to have people share with you at the beginning some of the stuff that's going on in their lives, what they're doing to inspire you to become better digital missionaries, what they're doing inside of their churches or as an individual. And so they'll share with you, and then there'll be a time for you to do some reflection, some questions that they're going to have you look over. That'll be your time, about 10 minutes or so, that you'll do that together or by yourself answering those questions. And after that, then we're all going to come together again, be a little bit interactive with the presenter that he'll be leading, or she'll be leading you with that presentation and the lab questions as well. So just to let you know what's going on, to give you a little bit of orientation so you can know what's happening. But this booklet right here is very important that you bring it every single time that we come together. Again, I want to thank you so much for being here. I want to invite my associate, Andrew Nugent, who's coming from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Let's get it up for Andrew Nugent. Also, some of you may already know the wonderful, the very best, Asia Best out there in the desk. We can do nothing without her. She is the best. And so we praise God for this journey that you're taking with us. I'll talk more about this tomorrow morning, but adventure, embracing danger is our theme for the youth young adult department because we're trying to help young people embrace danger in different ways, different healthy ways. But when it comes to the digital mission labs, some of you might be a little bit afraid to do something like this. Some of you might question some of this. And so God, I believe, is leading you to venture with him into the unknown of what you can do what God wants to do in you and through your church. So praise God that you guys are here. I hope that you guys have a wonderful time here together. We have some snacks going on. If you can get snacks whenever you want through the night. Andrew, please start us with prayer.
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we thank you, dear Lord, for this blessed opportunity we have to come together and to learn a little bit more how we can be effective, dear Lord, in the largest mission field that is available to us right now. We ask you, Lord, that you would use this thing that's in our pockets, and we might be able to amplify the gospel, dear Lord, to people, dear Lord, who haven't heard who Jesus is. Help us this weekend, dear Lord, to make Jesus a little more famous through the tools that we have. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Andrew. Before I introduce our first presenter, I do want to I'll announce him again tomorrow morning during our worship service, but today we have one of the vice presidents for the Florida Conference, the executive secretary, Tim Goff, right here, who supports us and wants to see this succeed, and so we praise God for his support. And tonight, our first presenter will be Randy McGray, who is the communications director, pastor, I don't know, communications director,
No.
Randy McGray. Please start us out, my brother.
Thank you. Thank you to Juan and the team for having me. And I've been told on great authority by someone who's a lot smarter than me that it's communication, no S. So I will just put that out there just so we don't get it wrong. My name is Randy McGray. I am the communication director at Whole Life Church in Orlando. Only by the grace of God am I here on time today. It was a day that will go down in infamy with me and my family. We enjoyed Culver's together in the car about 10 minutes ago, so we just slipped in. If you'd like to connect with me, if you can scan that QR code, and that will get us in touch if you have anything later that might come up. So this is Whole Life Church. We are downtown Orlando. We are in the 32804 zip code. So as you can see, the skyline is right behind us. Advent Health Orlando campus is directly east of us across Orange Avenue. And so our church feels a little bit different than some where we are not really close to suburbia. We are way, way more downtown. And so most of the people that come to our church also travel at least a minimum distance to join us each week in person. And I think part of that has lent itself to us realizing how far people are away from us that will also join us online. And that's a little bit about what I want to talk about tonight, and we'll go into it tomorrow in more detail. But finding out that there are people so close to you that you don't know, it's not your neighbor necessarily. It's a little bit more difficult to go and shake somebody's hand when they live in an apartment versus you see someone that you know that you're acquainted with that's right across the street. And that's just not our church location or demographic necessarily. So a little bit about Whole Life. Our loving people into a lifelong friendship with God is something we look for every single day in our mission to complete that. Everything that we do as it pertains to digital media and our communications really falls into that. And our value and our vision is to be a church without walls, fully engaged in serving the people of our community. Everything, again, kind of fits into those two categories as a staff, as we're looking at things that are brought to us for maybe outreach, things that are being asked for ministerial-wise, adding ministries, volunteers. And then on the bottom, our values are acceptance, forgiveness, grace, love, participation, the Bible, and worship. And all of these, I can't tell you how much time we as a staff spend on doing the work that we do, but really filtering it through all three of these to make sure that everything that we're doing, whether it's financially, spiritually, are fitting into those categories, and they are checking that box. Are people going to find acceptance with what we're talking about? Are they going to feel loved? And the answer isn't always yes, but it isn't because of intent. it's just because we're not perfect and we didn't execute as well as we thought we could, or we didn't see the roadblocks that were there that we, again, we all have blinders in certain spots, and that can be true even as a staff, that we have those from time to time. And the one thing that Juan asked me when we talked about this a while was really how we have embraced that part of our community, the streaming community, which really has been a focus at, years and we were the sanitarium for a church for a while, we were the Florida Hospital Church for a while, and then a couple years ago we made the transition to Whole Life Church. And so it's been a bit of a legacy. We were early on in the streaming arena because there were people, and I think this is true of a lot of churches. They say, well, we know we have people that are shut in, or people that just can't hear anymore due to whatever reasons, or even some that have moved away and they're like, I really miss when he was our senior pastor for 37 years, and when he retired, I would still get emails from people saying, well, I miss Andy on the podcast. I mean, could you guys have him back for a special episode? Or, I still want to hear those old messages. Where do I go to find them? So it's really been something that we've been working on for a long time, but it's also been a very direct and very purposeful way of allowing each of us to participate in evangelism, because we can all share something easy online. We can share something that we feel in our hearts is what God wants us to do, and also what's benefiting people that we can see. It's benefiting us. And so even though we'll go into this more tomorrow in the presentation, the one thing that I wanted to go through was innovation. And I know a lot of people go, where do we start if we haven't gone into this part of engaging our community outside our walls? We know people are there. We know they're out there. How do we do that? And a lot of it is having a group of people that are willing to say, not sure about this one, Jesus, but we're going to throw this one against the wall and see if it sticks, because it really seems like a good idea. We've been praying about it, and you haven't thrown any roadblocks, but it also seems a little crazy. We've had people say, I don't know. So during COVID, we sat down together with, I was actually a freelancer at the time working for a small production company that does work for Whole Life, and we had done some brainstorming as to what we're going to do. There wasn't a lot of work, so we had a lot of free time, and we were sitting around thinking, and we came up with what was called The Loop, an interactive worship service where we actually did, think SNL on stage, interaction with the band, maybe a late night talk show. And we turned our first service, even digitally initially, into that format. And as with all things, there were people that were like, man, this is great. I love the format. It's engaging. There are people and it wasn't just a demographic of age or preference. There was just a lot of people enjoyed it. But eventually, it did go away, but it led to a different idea of what church could be. And that was really a turning point for us, was to, yes, it is whatever you may call it the sanctuary. At our church, it's called the worship center. And realizing that just because we've always done something a specific way, maybe God has something different for each of us. And all the talents that, I can see, some heads going up and down. If God has put it on your heart that, that media is a place that you can contribute, it's something that you have, expertise in. I always say that there's time, talent, and treasure, and we all have a little bit of that we can give. Maybe not all three, maybe it's only one, but there's a portion of that God wants from us. I always feel weird saying God needs it from us, because I'm not sure that he needs it, but I'm absolutely positive that he wants it from us. And so that, to me, was one of the things that really was a mind shift. Even though I had been a part of other ministries at other churches that were uber creative, it was we were never allowed in a general way or a general sense, like you don't encroach on the most holy 11 o'clock hour. Like we're not gonna, like we don't want to shake things up too much. I mean, that's a cool idea, but maybe we could do that Friday night, or we could do that Saturday night, or maybe on a Wednesday night. Why don't we try that? And this was the first time that we were given kind of carte blanche to just go ahead and do it the way we felt, the way we saw it, the way we prayed about it. And it really was, again, it was short-lived, but there are still pieces that we've incorporated into our worship today. And what I'll say about that is this past year, we've done a lot of innovating, we've done a lot of changing, which is uncomfortable, even if that's something you desire. When you start actually thinking about it and you move from the thinking phase to the preparing phase, and you do all the background work, you do tests to see if it's viable. But then when you actually go and do it, it's a little scary, because how's it going to be received? How are people going to react? Is it going to be something that works, doesn't work? Is it going to blow up in our face? But we have started to engage in a way online that we haven't ever in the past, even pre-COVID. Our in-house, every week, the people that come and physically worship with us every week is pretty close. We're getting pretty close to pre-COVID numbers back again. And praise God, because I know that's not everybody's same result that they're seeing in churches of all denominations. It's been on the decline, and it hasn't come back yet. But there's not many weeks anymore that I go without getting at least an email, maybe 2 or 3. This week was a ton. Wednesday, I had a Zoom call with someone in Victoria, British Columbia, who tunes in, I believe he said 6 a.m. Their time, to hit our first service every week, because they're trying to learn how to stream and how to do it better. They have a single static shot that they hate, and everyone that watches hates it. Like, how do we get closer to the stage? We need better gear. And like, well, there's ways to get around that. There's ways to, fit it all in your budget. But it's a blessing to see that, because you've had the leadership that has given you the room to grow and to try and to move outside the box. And then you forget how far it is from where you came from, when it was, we had the single shot at one point. It wasn't always this way. We didn't always have a switcher in the back. We didn't have remote cams. We didn't have all these things. We didn't even have an online chat feature. But the way in which that has really led to where we are now, about 3 years later, last year, first quarter to fourth quarter, we saw a 32% increase in our connections to our online stream. And a lot of it has to do with the changes that we were making and saying, I think these are going to be good. I think these are going to be engaging. But what we weren't expecting was, we thought, this is a little pat on the back. We're doing good. And we just recently went through a lighting project at the church. The lights in the worship center were about 33 years old, and parts are no longer available on Amazon or eBay. So as they started turning into strobe lights unintentionally, not working, or just having the bulbs burn, it was like, okay, it's time. We have to do it. It was an $80,000 project that we, of course, we went into fundraising mode and decided we were going to do this. And each week, at least one service, I'm in the chat with all of our online family, engaging with them, and other members that do, and even people that are sitting in the worship center get online so that they can be engaging and they can be a part of that conversation. And as we were feeling pretty good about it, because we announced that the lighting project was fully funded, yay. We showed off the lights a little bit. They can do all the colors, and they can match, the other lights that are doing. So, the tech director was just like, he was just floating for the entire week. And second service, someone was like, well, that's great. Like, you didn't ask us for help. I was like, ooh. I was like, well, no. When we said, we're giving, here's the link, and, that's inclusive language for everybody. And they're like, no, it's not. You didn't look in the camera and look at us and say, we need you to help us if you can. What can you do? Can you be a part of this? Would you be a part of this? Because also, it's going to enhance what we can do and what we can see. There was spots that on the stream, no matter if you turned the lights on all the way, you just couldn't see people. So on weekends or events where you passed the mic, things like that, people were in the dark, you couldn't see them. And so we didn't communicate that nearly well enough. And it was one of those moments where it's just part of the journey. You think you're on the right path, and we were. We just weren't on the full path with everybody with us. And I think if there was something, as we kick off tonight that you think about, it's so easy to want to start, but just get to the finish line. Today when we left the house, it was like, all I want to do is just get there. We're sitting on I-4, and we had moved like 50 feet in a half an hour, and I texted Juan, I'm like, dude, I don't even know if I'm going to make it tonight. This is so crazy. I'm so upset. I was angry, and I'm just like, so, you just want to get there. But in the process, and this kind of hit me, we were one of the back road drivers, like Juan described, and as Sabbath started coming into happening, and the sun was setting over the right side of the car, we were on 31 coming in, and I was like, man, we're actually going to get to eat. Woo! We're going to get to eat. And then we pulled up around a corner, and it was just like, 40 cars piled up to the drawbridge. And I was like, well, maybe it's down. Maybe we're ready to go. And we wait, and I'm watching ETA keep gaining speed again. We'd been pulling it down the whole way. We were late, and now we're getting it back, and now it's going back up again. And then the semi-driver who was at the front gets out of his truck and starts walking around. I'm like, oh, boy, we're not going anywhere. I was like, I'm still going to have to make this call to Juan. I'm literally 6 miles away, and I'm going to have to make this phone call that we're not going to make it. But as we were driving in right before that, watching the sunset over the cows, over the palm trees, over the fields, it was like, wow, how pretty of a drive did we get to have today, because we needed the absolute shortest, fastest route to make sure we were going to get there. So I think part of it is, if I had something to say for an encouragement for you, would be that we all like to dream big, and we all want to see our church and our communities impacted by our church and impacted by the people that we love to do life and ministry with in our church. And it's easy to forget that along the way we still have to keep listening, we still have to keep maneuvering, we still have to keep finding ways to reach whoever we're not reaching. And the part that did make me feel good about that interaction with that person was that it has started a conversation now about how can our online family really be a part of what we're doing to take that next step. How can we do that? So we have tomorrow at one of those sessions, I will divulge a little bit more about what we're thinking and some of the plans that we have, hopefully for 2024, but we won't cross that bridge yet till we get there, so maybe 2025. But once you realize that what you're doing by really looking at the values, and we'll go back to those 9 values each time, participation is so important, and having inclusion, but messaging that from the front. That has to come from leadership. It has to be something that we talk about every week in some way, shape, or form. Our worship pastor, Melanie Bachman, is an amazing person who I get to work with every day, that also helps to keep our messaging on track, not just through the communication department, but during the worship service, making sure that what we're talking about, what we're putting out, whether it's social media, press releases, any of those things, is matching what we're saying from the front, from whoever might be up front. And even sometimes they let me go up front, so that, you got to rein in who you have to rein in when you have to rein them in. But really making sure that it's a collective effort, and that messaging, and it sounds weird sometimes to me because it's a church, and it's like, well, I think people know what church is about, but they don't know what your church is about. So making sure that you have that all your messaging is on brand, and that we're known as a safe place, and it's okay to ask questions, it's okay to disagree, it's okay to have a different sense of opinion, and you'll be seen and you'll be heard. And whether it goes your way this time, maybe next time it's your turn, and everyone's just looking for a way that we're always adhering to that mission, vision, and values, to make sure that we can't just expect people, even at that, to just come in, we have to go out, and that is just one of the huge ways that we're doing it. So one of the takeaway from that to me is just wherever you're at, if you're starting and you're new and you're like, man, I would love to be able to stream. Even, there's churches like, hey, we have enough people to do it once a month, and for whatever, that's where we're going to start. To, hey, we just like to be able to do it once. We'd like to start. So no matter where you are on the journey, there's still, even those of us that people will call me pretty regularly to ask about, how do you do this? How can we start this? What are you using? What's the equipment look like? What does the manpower look like? Volunteers or paid staff? And answering all those questions, it just still comes down to, we're so far from where our dreams are of what we think we can do to enhance the kingdom impact of Whole Life Church across the globe. In all the ways that we're trying to bring people to Jesus, there's lots of room to grow, and we love to learn just as much as we love to teach. And so I know, are we ready to go for that? Okay. I want to go over because I got the high five, hard five. We're out. Okay.
In your books, you have the Learning Lab questions right now. This is where we're going to take 10 minutes where you're going to answer these questions. You can talk to one another. That's cool. And then we're going to bring Randy back up, and he's going to go through some of the answers that you guys gave, maybe some questions that you might have for him. So we'll do that together. So this is part of our learning lab time. So the questions you have here are, what 3 points stood out for the presentation? So the points that really stood out from what he shared, I want you to go ahead and put that there. Why did this point stand out? And at the end there, the third question, what is one thing your church can change to communicate or engage better with church guests? So go ahead and go through these Learning Lab questions right now. You have 10 minutes to talk among yourself if you came with your church group, or just for you to do it by yourself. But go ahead and do that right now. You got 10, 15 minutes. Thank you.
Test. Yeah.
All right. So let's see if we can wrap down the conversation a little bit so we can talk together. I'm going to invite Randy to come up here. He's going to lead out with a conversation, and then Andrew Nugent and myself, we got these mics. We're going to go to you if you have a question or want to share with us. Just wait till we get to you so we can give you the mic and you can talk into it.
Excellent. All right. Anyone have anything they want to start off? Anyone want to be the brave soul to raise the hand first and wave down that mic? I see Tim. Tim's looking like he's got, no? Did I miss? That's what happens when you misread the room. No, that's okay. I was going to see, I thought you were going to raise your hand and be the start off. Yeah, I thought I saw you. I thought we had a moment, but.
Yeah, I was curious how you mentioned something about increasing your engagement online. I'm assuming you mean like getting your online viewers to chat or respond to the content. So just wanted to ask how you've seen that improve, or what have you guys done specifically to get people who are watching? Normally they don't comment. They're just kind of like out there, anonymous people watching.
Yes.
You don't know who they are.
Yep.
So what have you guys done to improve actually getting to know who your online audience is?
The first thing, and I kind of touched on a little bit with the loop, and part of what came out of that was an online worship host model. And so we do have, and this will be a little confusing, we're transitioning away from having an actual worship host for the people that are there in person, and we're really turning the online worship host into one, greeting everybody that's online, and their job is also to be in the chat. So before we go live for church, they're on the feed, and they are welcoming everyone in, asking lots of times it's an icebreaker question, where are you watching from? Within our chat system, we do have a ability to pray for people in a private chat. We're able to chat as hosts privately as well if we see something that needs to happen. But really that person's job, and I've taken it on as part of my job as well. A lot of people know from our podcast. I'm the host of, and I write and host the podcast and script it, one of our podcasts. And so we've been doing that for 7 years. So there's a lot of people that immediately started that engaging. So really making sure that there is somebody in the chat all the time, and that isn't just waiting for somebody else. It's welcoming them. It's offering them, offering to pray over them. Also, we have a response time in, I would say, about 95% of our weeks. If it's not a guest speaker, we don't put them on the spot. But we put Ken, our lead pastor, on the spot every single week and say, okay, you can, if you're online, we'll ask them for their questions. And the worship host has the access to the chat. They will read those. We will tease one that we don't have time for and make you go to the podcast and listen, because we will answer it at the end of the show. And so part of that engagement has been taking different pieces and different parts and making sure they all know from there. But it's really the culture of making sure that the people that are watching are online family. We call them family because we really do feel like they're family. We want them to feel like they're family and that they're connecting. And so we've seen it in the number of chats and the people and the activity. Used to be, you can download our chat in a CSV and it would fill about a quarter of a page a year ago. And now there's weeks from the podcast when I can't keep up because I'm actually chatting. I'll download one service and it'll be 3 pages. Also, we went from averaging about 350 to 400 people connections. I don't want to say people because it's inaccurate, but connections to over. So far this year we've been over 800 for for both services. So about 400 a service starting this year. So we've seen the numbers go up, and we basically count them because you can't know how many are there until you know who's actually watching. But we can at least know what the traffic is. And so we do calculate traffic numbers just so that we know when something's going in the right direction. And when the conversations follow, then you know you're going in the right direction for us. Right?
Quick, if I can just jump in here real quick.
Yeah.
And then we'll go to your question. Travis, one of the things that he didn't say that I absolutely loved is that I was watching one day on a Sabbath morning, the service live, and they actually had a person in the lobby. Stanley was in the lobby with his iPad, and they had a camera on him, and he's talking to the people from the lobby that are watching online, and just engaging with them. So, like, the watcher is actually in the lobby of the church together with them, which is something that I haven't seen ever done. Maybe other churches do it. I haven't seen it. So you're engaged within that church family, not just watching a worship service. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah, the online worship host is the first person to greet you. They'll be with you in the chat, and then you will see them. They will be your sign-off person. And if you come to one of my 2 tomorrow, I will tell you something really cool that we've got signed up for next year that we're working on, hopefully to deploy by end of 2024. Keeping fingers crossed.
Yeah, thank you, Randy. I have 2 questions, if I can. One is, how do you measure the impact and effectiveness of your media ministry? And the other one is, can you discuss any future plans for your media ministry life?
How I know the impact is honestly, my inbox used to be pretty empty outside of the day-to-day transactional things that we all are responsible as a staff. And I was hired initially as a digital ministries director, which we quickly realized that, because Ken's been here just over 3 years, and I came in about a year and a half into Ken's stay. We had a lot of staff turnover. People retired, people moved. It just so happened we had all these new people. So it took a little bit for us to figure out what my position really looked like and what needed to be moved here and there. And that's the other part, was just having that, really having be in your lane and know your lane, stay in your lane, and then invite people that you need into the lane if you need help. But really, my inbox started filling up with the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I feel like if we don't get all 3 of them, if you're just getting the one, if it's just the good or the bad or just the absolute ugly, then you're probably missing something in that process. Because the more that we've seen the growth, the more we've seen of all 3, which I think is good. Because again, I mentioned blinders, and you don't know the blinders you have until somebody points them out. And so, and that will come from the most unexpected places, and it can come in the most kind tone you've ever thought of, not too often sometimes for those. And sometimes even the compliments come in one that's a little bit like, oh, well, I'm sure you meant that in a positive way, but thank you. So I really feel like part of my job is to be making sure that when our staff members get feedback, that they know it's comfortable for them to come to me and say, you can shoot me straight. I can handle it. I can take it, and I'm not going to get mad. I'm not going to be upset. I'm going to be concerned that we missed something somehow, or we were really off base, and I'm going to be congratulatory and happy when we nailed it. Absolutely, we're going to celebrate, right? So I really feel like that's how we've known where we've let that. We don't, as a staff, we don't shy away from that. We do a lot of things together. We do a lot of. Ken is big on in corporate training. A bunch of us have executive coaches who are trying to make sure that we're better. So we really do have that open air of letting people in, and as tough as it can be sometimes to hear it. That's really how I believe that you know that what you're doing is making a difference, because you're really getting the feedback from people that, even the negatives, a lot of times you're like, man, you guys, do you know you excluded this whole group of people? I'm a special needs dad, and so I feel that in my heart, that when you are part of a group that isn't often seen, or maybe you're seen but you're not heard, or maybe you're seen and you're heard but you're not asked to participate. Those are the kinds of things, and that's why I'll keep going back to our values. That acceptance is huge, but that comes with acceptance comes, I have to listen to the hard things, and I may have to apologize because I got it wrong, because I just don't know what I don't know, or I didn't handle it appropriately, so take me to task. And that's a tough one, but I really feel like for us as a staff, that's how we know we celebrate the good, and we dig in hard to find out how we can do better the next time on whatever we came up short. So. And tomorrow, I think I have 2 different times I'm going to be presenting that, aren't I, Juan? Yeah. Come by tomorrow. Did you have one? Oh, I thought you were raising your hand. Oh, this gentleman in the front row who is not a plant. He is not the husband of our worship pastor. Mr. Bachman, what can I do for you? This is Nashville Tim. If any of you are ever watched a stream and someone named Nashville Tim is on the podcast or is in the chat, you've now met Nashville Tim.
Yeah, is this on?
He's
Okay.
now Orlando Tim, but he doesn't like it.
No, I'm sticking with Nashville Tim. But I wanted to tag on to the question that was in the back of the first back here on how to engage online people in the chat. And my wife and I started as online worshipers during COVID from Nashville. And then we ended up moving to Orlando, and it's like we loved it now. We get to worship in person. But one of the things that really got me engaged, and you touched on it, but from my perspective, I really like the chat, because I know if during the sermon there's a question in my mind that the pastor does not answer, I can type it into the chat, and there's a really good chance it's going to get answered in the Q&A right after the service, or in the podcast just a few days later. And it really, I don't know, it makes me feel involved. So that's important to me, and I think it is to others too.
And we do have a message podcast that really started because, again, I mentioned our previous senior pastor who was there for 37 years. There was some FOMO, there was some anxiety from people that were like, man, I just really miss Andy. Can we have his sermons? And the deal I had made with Andy early on was I would not produce a podcast with message only unless he would let me actually produce one that actually is a real podcast, and we have conversations and we make a difference. So he graciously allowed, and so I repaid that with, it's called Speaking of Grace. If anywhere you hear podcasts, you can catch our message every week. Anybody else? So I'll ask a question. Someone here, anyone, what's one thing your church can change to communicate or engage better with church guests? Anything that may be specific to your church experience, even if maybe you're just new to the media kind of aspect of church? Is it something, what could a church or your church do just even to communicate better with you? Because oftentimes we forget that, you know, we're trying to go outside and we're trying to bring people in. It can't be at the expense of those that are already here and also need to know what's going on. They need to know when to do things, where to be, and they need to know that, just like Tim mentioned, they need to know that that messaging is for them too. So, oh, hand over here.
I guess you can start with creating a space for them to easily access what your church is doing. You know, a lot of times when guests come in, sometimes they don't get to engage with kind people, but they're interested in your church for a reason. And so if on the platform or whatever, you can provide them a QR code or something where they can access what's happening with the church, then you can engage them that way, or somehow to easily get in contact with a pastor or something. And then secondly, make it easy for them with your church website. Make sure your church website is easy to navigate, so that they can, so that we can engage them in a more effective way.
5,000 bonus points to the man in orange right there. How about a hand? That's the best question right there. Because, and I'm glad you brought that up, because and certainly throwing no shade at my predecessor or anyone who came before me, but our website had been updated by someone who was an occasional attender, but didn't really have their finger on the pulse of what was happening. My predecessor got the job as part of, you start here in this job, and they're like, well, you need some more to do. Well, you can handle that. And then you move into that role, and then they go, oh, well, if you can do that kind of tech, you can certainly build a website, right? You have time for that. I mean, you got 40, you got plenty of time. And so it wasn't something that was within the bandwidth, and it was a huge complaint when I came on board. And it has taken, because of the fact that we're growing so fast, it's hard to keep up. And so about 6 months ago, I went to Ken and I said, I need help. I can't keep up. I'm working too many hours and I can't keep up and I can't do it all. And things are slipping, and things are only slipping, the quality is slipping. And so I got an assistant, and we just hired him. His name is Max. He's awesome. He's about 30 years younger than me, so he speaks a completely different language. And yet, we still speak the same language, and we're quickly becoming great friends, and he's a great asset. I passed off so many things to him today that allowed me to almost not make it, that we were to do that. So no, I hear what you're saying. The website is a huge deal, and things have to be right. They have to be where you tell them that it is, and it has to be clear. And the other part is we've actually just recently gone to less things in the worship service, like announcements that take up time. They detract from the worship flow. And we've actually decided, how can we make this different? 2 weeks ago was our first time. It was like basically 30 or 2 minutes with Max and Randy on camera. We did a little bit, and we played it after the entire service was ending. So everyone was already in and seated. And if you're going to get up and leave, well, that's on you. But we just told you there's some cool stuff coming up. And so there were some people that hated it, even on staff. Like, that didn't feel right at the end. It's supposed to be in the beginning. We don't even do a welcome anymore. We switched over to we have a hype video that plays at the beginning. And when you hear that music for the rest of this year, you better be inside in 60 seconds or you're missing the opening song. So we go right into 2 songs, and then people are in because you don't want to miss music, right? And you don't want to be late, because if you're 5 minutes late, you probably missed the first 2 songs or pretty close to it. Then it's a welcome. Then we're glad you're here. And let's worship and song again. Then we might intersperse some other things as we talk about. But we debrief every week for an hour how last week went, how next week is going to go, hopefully, and where we're headed in the next month. We spend a ton of time working on those details, but it's very, very specific, and it takes a lot of work.
All right, we have time for one more.
Okay.
And again, if you want to hear more from Randy, tomorrow afternoon, I have 2 breakouts.
Yep.
So go ahead. We have one more person.
Yep. I can hear you. Yeah.
Two ideas that I
There you go.
had a moment ago, so maybe they can need to more development. But one idea will be of having 2 ministries. The first one is when people get to the church, ask the people when you see that they're definitely a visitor, ask them if they would like to be in our interactions group. And then have somebody in charge of that group, and that person will be like, hey, we have service this day, we have this campaign going on, and somebody will be interacting with them every week. And that will be one of the ideas. And the thing about media is it's free. I mean, you can talk to people, it's easy, and of course you will be asking the person if they would like to be part of that group. The second one will be having another department and having somebody in charge of that, and that person will kind of like say hi to everybody, say, how are you doing? And kind of interact with everybody in the church. So, because I guess sometimes people get lonely or they want to know more, so they will have more interactions online.
Awesome. I'll quickly, I know we're running out of time, I'll quickly address both of those. And one thing that I probably won't talk about tomorrow because I won't have time, but one of the things that I am actually in the process of putting together getting multiple bids for is we're looking at putting in 80-inch touchscreen interactive wall monitors in both sides of our worship center, which will have information by QR code for who your deacons are, how they can help. So anywhere they are, it'll automatically send them a text message if you need help getting in your car, flat tire, you just need to find your room. We're also going to, in that system will also be Wi-Fi wayfinding, which when you walk in, most of you, if you have an iPhone, it will automatically tell you. If it's your first time at our facility, it'll say, hey, welcome to Whole Life Church, how can we help you? And it will populate a menu of how we can serve you. Doesn't replace the physical, but in a church our size that has 3 floors and 2 services and hundreds of people in the lobby every week, it's difficult. We want to make sure that we can accommodate that. And to your other point, it's not something that we currently do at Whole Life. I wish we did, and it's something that we just you got to take every piece as you can. Although we encourage our members to do it, is a young adult service that I was a part of about 15 years ago. We had the secret shoppers every week. There was a team of people that their only job was to carry a cup of coffee and find someone that they didn't know and make sure that they struck up a conversation. Can I get you a snack? Can I get you a cup of coffee? Looks like you're new here. And I know that sometimes takes a special person that's willing to put themselves out there, but there's plenty of those in every church. If the opportunity presides, we had a lot of people that wanted to do it, more so than I would have ever guessed. So both really great points. There's lots of ways that we can do that. And when people know that it's making the church a warmer place for guests, they will absolutely volunteer for that.
Thank you, Randy. Let's give it up for Randy once again.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome. Coffee, tea, Roma, whatever your church can handle. But guys, we're going to take a 5-minute break. You're more welcome to get more snacks. And there's the bathrooms, by the way, are through those doors to the left. Through those to the left. If you have to go to the bathroom. We'll take 5 minutes so we can switch mics and get ready for our next presenter. So go ahead. We'll start up in about 5 to 7 minutes. Thank you.
If you feel lost, he's a way maker. If you need freedom or savior, he's a prison
All right, if you please could get back to your seats.
You got chains, he's a chain breaker.
If you are wanting the password for the internet services of Fort Myers Church, they are scrolling behind me. FMSDA is the Wi-Fi. The password is I will pray. I will pray. I will pray. Here's the password. Capital I. I will pray. All right. All right, guys, we're about to get started with our last presentation, our second and last presentation for the evening. I'm very excited to introduce to you an amazing leader in his community. He is the pastor of media at Oakwood University Church. I don't think you were doing that last year at this time, were you? Were you doing that last year at this time? Oh, okay. So he was with us last year, and he was so good that we said, hey, Kurt, come back. But really, the reason that he is the most famous is because he is the brother of Andrew Nugent, my associate. That's why he's really famous. So, Kirk Nugent, come on up here and share with us our last presentation.
Good evening. That is simply not going to do. So let's try it again. Evening. We're starting to get a little warm. My sister here in the gray sweatshirt looking down. Yes! What's your name? Debbie, where are you from? Fort Lauderdale. Anybody from Fort Lauderdale in the house? No Fort Lauderdale folks here? Well, okay, we got some Fort Lauderdale folks. Thank you so much, Debbie, for being with us. Excited to have you here with us tonight. Is that a blanket? Okay, awesome. I told my brother I need a blanket. So I don't know what's going on with y'all Floridians. You have the AC on. What's your name? Where are you from? Glenda from Orlando, Spanish. Anybody from Orlando? Orlando is represented. I like that. Orlando is here in their numbers. My brother right here in the Marvel. Yeah, I caught you right as you were about to eat. See, this is why I'm doing this, because I want to make sure that I have your attention. What's your name? Where are you from? I didn't hear the name. Raheem from South Florida. Is that Miramar? Okay. Anybody else from that area? Okay, cool. Awesome. My name is Kirk Nugent, and I do serve as media pastor at the Oakwood University Church, which is absolutely amazing. I want to ask you a couple of questions. How many of you are aware of podcasting? Aware of podcasting? I see a couple of hands coming up. I saw several of your hands going up. How many of you have a podcast? Now, keep it in the air. I see 1, 2, 3. Okay, a couple of them. I'll put them up proud. If you're a podcaster, come on. If you have a podcast, go ahead and stand up. Okay, no. There were 3 hands at that table back there. Only one person standing. So there's 3 podcasts at that table? And all of you are on that? Aha. Looking forward to this. This is going to be a lot of fun. And then there's podcasts here all year around as well. That's good. And so the question is, can a podcast be ministry? Can a podcast be ministry? Yeah. What if every church had a podcast studio? For the Praise Cafe at our church, our young people are able to sign up to use that space, and we have more young people coming to the church to record podcasts with our youth for that podcast than for Sabbath school or for any other functions that we have at the church, because they have access to an entire set of equipment and gear, because churches can afford that, where families might not be able to. So let me ask you again, what if every church had a podcast studio? They asked me to come to speak for Career Day at my daughter's school. This is for 5th graders, 6th graders, around that age group. They asked me to come and speak because they said, you're a YouTuber, and majority of these kids want to be you guys are a great crowd. And so I go to the school to speak because I am a YouTuber. And I have my 5-minute presentation all ready to go. I stand up in front of all of these kids. It's a sea of them. And I say, good morning, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. My name is Kirk Nugent, and I'm a YouTuber. And there's a hand that goes up right in the front. So I don't know what the question could be about. We're like 2 seconds in. All I've said is my name. And she's just wiggling that hand and wiggling and wiggling. So I said, okay, we're going to take this question, but no more questions until the end of the presentation. And so I said, okay, young lady, what's your question? And she says, aren't you my pastor? And so I said, that depends. Do you go to Oakwood University Church? She says, yes. I said, well, then I'm your pastor. She had a follow-up. So her follow-up question was, how can you be a pastor and a YouTuber? And she made my entire presentation. She made my entire presentation. Because that's the best way for it to work. How can you be a Christian and a podcaster? Do you see it? How can you be a gamer and a Christian? Is it possible? Come on, can we be honest? It's possible. You can say yes. It's okay to say yes. You can be a gamer and be a podcaster. How can you be? The truth of the matter is, Randy, are you still here? There you go. What's the name of your church? Just say it. Say it really loud. The truth of the matter is, it's about your whole life. It can't just be about one aspect of your life. So in podcasting, one of the major things I want to make sure you walk away with, that it is about your entire life. So this is the general definition of podcasting. Podcasting is the preparation and distribution of audio files using RSS feeds to digital devices of subscribed users. Okay, good. That's nice. It's a great one. Is it ministry? Podcasting is a practice. It's a tool. It's what we put in the podcast that could possibly make it ministry. So does it have to be overt for it to be ministry? Do you have to preach for it to be ministry? Do you have to bang somebody over the head with the red books for it to be ministry? In fact, that's the recipe to have a failed podcast. People want to know who you are. They want to know what you go through. They want to know what your story is. Those are the types of presentations. Those are the types of podcasts that we all resonate with. And those are the types of podcasts that we need to continue to create. Here's some statistics that kind of outline that this is a golden opportunity. There are 464 million podcast listeners globally. That number is predicted to reach 504 million this year. Podcast industry market size is $23.56 billion. Now, I know we're not interested in the money, but that's a lot of money. There are over 5 million podcasts globally with over 70 million episodes between them. And podcasts are available in over 150 languages. Here's another set. Video podcast production is now higher than ever. Video podcasts, it's the same concept. Just turn on the camera. And I highly recommend, even if it's a webcam, that you turn on a camera. Spotify and Apple Podcasts are two biggest podcast streaming services on the globe. The United States has the most podcast listeners in the world. Where do we live? Podcast listening is highest in the morning, and most of the podcasts are listened to on a mobile phone. Is the market saturated? Some of you have already read the the small text. So that's why somebody said, oh, wow, over there. The rest of you guys, I don't know. It's like you didn't come to church today. Study finds that there are more Christian podcasts than there are actual Christians. What's going on there? Recent joint study conducted by Apple and Pew Research, imagine that, Apple and Pew, left researchers shocked to find that there are more Christian podcasts than actual Christians. The study was prompted by several claims that podcasts were being mislabeled and put in wrong categories. Most common complaint being that most podcasts filed under religion and spirituality should actually be filed under comedy or or business. I'm gonna leave that one alone. That one's just too easy. So where's the opportunity? Because that's what it looks like at the top. So where's the opportunity? For podcasters looking to get noticed, which genre a show appears in can make a difference. Meisner suggests that when producers are trying to decide between different podcast categories and more than one seems like a good fit, the best option is selecting the least crowded. You see why it has to be about your whole life? So if you are into carpentry, you got a whole lane carved out for yourself. You know what? Guilty pleasure. Is this a safe space? Can I admit to you something? You know those YouTube channels where they just mow the grass? Oh my, yes. I have at least a couple of witnesses in the back row. SB mowing. Anybody? SB mowing? Yeah. Al Blades. Come on. All they do is cut grass, and I'm just like, oh, look at the lines. But do you know what Al Blades does? Al Blades will ask his viewers, how should he bless 2 million views per video? He asks his viewers, how should he bless somebody today? Lawn cutting is his actual business. That's his vocation. That's his discipline. That's his expertise. He cuts these lawns for free just because his YouTube channel asks him to do it. Where's the one with the most space? Anybody got a true crime podcast? Because it seems like there's a lot of space where true crime is concerned. Seems like there's a lot of space where true crime, fiction, maybe even history, government. Look down here. What about kids and family? What about science and technology? Madison Mission SDA Church, which is also there in Huntsville, they have an associate pastor. His name is Aaron Abernathy, really good friend of mine. Him and his wife have a YouTube channel where they travel. He is unapologetically himself, but he's a travel enthusiast. He's also a ordained Seventh-day Adventist minister with a church, and he's also a travel enthusiast. It's about your whole life. We just got to find where the opportunities are. Christian podcast or Christian podcaster? If non-Christians are making Christian podcasts, then why not just make a podcast and be a Christian? Why not make a podcast and just be you? Because if the God you serve comes out in everything that you do, then it will still be a Christian podcast, even if you're gaming. See, you guys have a problem with gaming. That's why I keep on going back to it. It'll still be a Christian podcast, even if you're gaming. Let me ask you, do you go to a Christian grocery store? Do you go to a Christian gas station? It's starting to come a little clearer, isn't it? Do you go to a Christian park with your kids to play on the swing? Do you make sure that it's Christian first? What about a Christian airport? I had to go through 2 airports to get here. Atlanta is not Christian. okay? It's not Christian. But I still flew through there to get here. And they still got me here on time. I'm going to tell you, Delta, they do their thing. I want to free somebody up to understand that we can exist in these spaces and allow our content to define who we are. To allow our content to define who we are. I want to share with you a couple of steps how to start a podcast. Anybody familiar with Pat Flynn? I thought there were podcasters in here. This guy is kind of one of the founders of podcasting. But anyway, Pat Flynn says, choose a topic and commit to it. Can you do that? This is not one that you answer with words. When I say commit to it, I mean, you wait for it. You can't have a podcast this Sabbath about family life and a podcast next Sabbath about finances and a podcast the next Sabbath about children and youth and the podcast next Sabbath about women's. Are you seeing it? So what I'm saying is your Sabbath message it's not sticking to one topic. You're all over the place, as it should be. But with your podcast, you got to stick with one. You got to stick with one topic. You have to create a value proposition for those who are watching, for those who have signed up for the content that you are planning to give them. And if I sign up, I'm telling you a real issue that we had at our church, Randy. If I signed up, if I subscribed to Oakwood today for this sermon, because Pastor Snell just knocked it out of the park, and then I get a notification, I'm not an Adventist, and I get a notification, I'm not Adventist. I get a notification on Sunday morning that that same church is live, I'm going to go look. And then I see a funeral. Yeah. I'm telling you, this is really what happens. And so now, I unsubscribe. Because you've broken the contract. I can't believe what you say anymore. I'll go somewhere else. It was a great message. I don't know if I want to engage with you. Pick your podcast name. That's number 2. Do you notice it says, it doesn't say pick your name. It says pick your podcast name. And your podcast name should be representative of who you are. I feel like Juan's 5 hand is raising up, so I'm trying to move a little faster. Write a compelling podcast description. The title and description are super important, and we'll go over that in a little more detail in my breakout session tomorrow. In the breakout session tomorrow, hint, hint. In the breakout session tomorrow, we'll go over that in more detail. Get your podcast artwork and music created. Now we have to look at purchasing your podcast equipment, test your podcasting software, choose your podcasting hosting service. Anybody familiar with hosting podcasts? What do you use? Captivate. Come on. That's the one. Buzzsprout is great. And it's one of the OGs. Like they came to the market first. But let me tell you, Captivate. Oh, I had to make the switch. What you got? Oh, that's the 5 hand. Oh, okay. Okay, all right, we're going to move a little quicker. Record your podcast episodes, and then you've got to advertise it. You got to advertise it or else the world doesn't know. I'm going to skip this one. We will do this in the breakout tomorrow. We'll break into groups, and we'll kind of go through creating the name and selecting a topic, and I'll give you feedback on how best to do that. You have low-budget podcasting. I started my first podcast in the backseat of my car. It has, you close the doors. It has that suction effect. It sounds really great. I held my phone up to my mouth and just kind of did my thing. That podcast still did well. You do not need a lot of equipment. You could start right there. Mobile phone, car backseat. Audacity is a really great product. It's free. Somebody's nodding their head. Come on. Mid-tier. USB microphone, I like the MV7, web-based streaming client, Audacity or GarageBand. You can add a video in with webcam. High-end, it gets a little more pricey, but these are some of the things that I highly recommend you look at. Here are some studio examples. I don't have time to stay, but these are Oakwood, Breath of Life, my house. Same. What makes a good podcast? First, you got to focus on the central idea. Focus on the central idea. Remember that topic that we talked about and staying consistent with it? Focusing on that central idea. And if you solved a specific problem for somebody, or if you opened up a particular issue, Randy, you don't mind if I pick on you, do you? So Randy talked about being a special needs dad. That's a phenomenal podcast. It's the truth. Because of what he said. It's a community that isn't often spoken to. Now, if you have that podcast and you switch to underwater basket weaving, you've got to stay focused on the central idea. Plan to an audience. Every time you are speaking into that microphone, you need to be thinking about that person, who they are, what their issues are, how did they even come to approach your podcast? Where are they listening to you? Are they in the grocery store? Are they on the treadmill? Are they dropping off kids at school? If you think about who that person is and what their profile is, you can speak directly to who they are. And they feel like, this person knows me, and I'm not going anywhere. Regular schedule. That consistency piece. If it's once a week, if it's once a month, whatever you choose, stay with it. And I tell my coaching clients, if you tell me you can do once a week, let's start with every other week. If you tell me you can do every other week, let's start with once a month. You can give people more, but you cannot go down. You can't give them less. Show structure. What's the components in your show? It's a show. Anybody old enough to remember Price is Right? And the different components, and you had components to the show. So is your show just talk, and more talk, or is there components to it? Can you build into it different things that the audience can come to? Oh, I love this part of the show. Oh, they're going to be talking about. It doesn't just happen for Price is Right. It can happen for you too. You know the phrase success leaves clues. Price is Right still going, like 40, 50 years later. It's crazy. The last piece is the most critical, and I'm probably going to have to land here because that hard five is now, he's starting to take steps towards me. Authenticity. 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 Authenticity means no mask. Authenticity means the success that you might face or experience with creating a podcast may come from your deepest, darkest secret. And the fact that you're not over it yet. So I'm not podcasting from victory. I'm just being my real, authentic self. Every person I've worked with that's had breakout moments, that's had viral success, ridiculous impact, it's because they finally figured out how to get the mask off and just be real with their audience. Authenticity is, if you don't hear anything else, you've got to be authentic. You've got to be authentic. I'm in a dilemma, trying to figure out how to land. What I'll say is this, and it's at the top part of the screen. Podcasting changed my life. It allowed me to be able to meet folks that I had been watching since I was a child. Luria Petrucci used to be Callie Lewis. You remember Callie Lewis from Geek Beat TV? I'm pointing to my brother because, we used to watch these things together. Podcasting allowed me to speak on stages that I had never thought, to be able to share my authentic and unique story to people who don't look like me, don't believe like me, in spaces that pastors and preachers can never go. Podcasting filled up that entire bookcase of gear because people wanted to get their gear into my podcast, and so they would send me stuff to the house, and these packages just kept on arriving. It's a great problem to have. Podcasting changed my life. This guy on the left, Sean Cannell, I went to one of his conferences, Grow with Video Live, and so he said to us, I have a bonus session tomorrow morning during the conference, a bonus session. It's not really on the, the itinerary, but it's a bonus. If you want to come, you can come, but you don't have to. I came to that session the next morning. Do you know that it was worship? They were teaching YouTube mastery. And I find out that this guy is a former youth pastor. The guy on the other side, that's Daryl Eves. Everybody ever heard of a little show called The Chosen? Daryl Eves and Dallas Jenkins put together The Chosen. And podcasting changed my life. That's me and my family and Leslie and his family. We're in season 3, episode 5 of The Chosen. Because when you give yourself, I'm not saying, this is small things. This is just stuff that we can say wow about. But when you give of yourself with authenticity, when you share your whole self, when you recognize that the value of what I'm sharing isn't because of the vanity metrics, I'm not looking for views. I'm just hoping that one person will change their mind about where they're going and what Jesus can do in their lives. Podcasting changed my life. I never saw myself as a pastor. That was the furthest thing from my mind. And yet, that's me sitting on the front pew on my installation Sabbath. Why podcasting? I can't even find it in the notes. Because your story and the pitfalls and the roller coasters of it, locked inside of it are principles and practices that could literally change someone's life if you share it. The Word of God says we overcome by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of our testimony. So my challenge to you as I hand the mic over to Juan is, will you steward your story? It doesn't have to be with a podcast, but I submit that that is probably one of the most powerful ways that you could do that in this generation. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Pastor Kirk. We're actually gonna have a time for questions here in a minute. Oh, copies of the PowerPoint.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's fine. All right, very good. Thank you. So it's time for our Learning Lab questions, and afterwards we're also selling Kirk Nugent autograph for a fundraiser since he was on The Chosen Season 3. Low-key advertisement. Lab questions. On page 9 of your workbooks, what makes a good podcast? What is the reason many podcasts fail? Can a podcast be a digital missionary? You got less than 10 minutes to go over these right now with your group or by yourself. Go ahead and answer these questions right now. All right. Hey, let's wrap our conversation now. I'm going to invite Pastor Kirk Nugent, if he can come up here and lead out with our lab time. All right, so we'll start it out with...
So there are 3 questions that were in your books. Okay. I'll just talk a little softer, see if that works. But there are 3 questions in your book, and they are, they weren't meant to be, they weren't meant to stump you. But what makes a good podcast? Okay, let's move to the next one. All right, what is the reason many podcasts fail? Now, this is the slide I had to skip over, but before I go to the slide, let's see what you come up with. Inconsistency. Okay, anybody else? That you miss all the shots you don't take. You miss every shot you don't take. So Yeah. He said not starting. You definitely, dead on arrival. Audio attrition. Give us more. What is attrition?
Learn how to do your podcast correctly, like edit your podcast
Mastering
correctly.
it. Yeah. Do you know that and TikTok is such a great example of this. People will continue watching the video even if the video is all over the place. It's grainy, it's wavy. We're getting some seasickness as we're watching it. But as long as that audio is right, we will continue to watch that video. Audio is critically important. So whatever level you find yourself, remember we talked about those 3 tiers of equipment that you can use. Whatever level you find yourself at, do the best you can at that level. Do the best you can at that level. So some of you are laughing at me because I was in the backseat of the car, but that gave me the best audio at that level. At that level. Until I could get a better mic, so even in an untreated room, I could get the best audio I could get at that level. Until I could get into a treated room with sound panels, because at that level I could get the best audio that I could possibly have. But let me be clear. Your audio can be absolutely pristine. If you're not saying anything worth listening to, they're gone. So content is still king. Content is still king. All right, what's the third question? Oh, this one's simple. Yes or no? Can a podcaster be a digital missionary? Oh, you didn't say that with, did you believe it? Can a podcaster be a digital missionary? Yes. All right. Now, what questions do you have for me? Oh, no questions. All right, I can go now. I thought I was going to get away. While she's getting asked this question, my digital card is on the screen, and I will be sharing a lot more in-depth and have some hands-on opportunities. I'm actually going to break out some microphones tomorrow for you to record some stuff in my breakout session. Just a little incentive, All right, what you got?
All right, so I have 2 questions. I literally know nothing about podcasting, right? So the first question is, how do you advertise your podcast?
You started by saying, I what? What did you say? You started by saying I?
Know nothing about.
Let's maybe go back to that part. So now how do you get to know more about podcasting? This guy said it really loud. He said YouTube University. But and he's absolutely correct. How do you get to know? Here's the thing I want to get to. Because her question is absolutely phenomenal, but I don't want you guys to miss something. Why you are doing the podcast will motivate you to figure out what you don't know. So I can tell you, and you can write it down, and you may or may not do anything with it. Because you still have to figure out why. Why do you want to create the podcast? When you know why, you can advertise. When you know why and who it's for, you can go into groups who the podcast is for, and you can engage in those groups, not because you want them to listen to your podcast, but because you have a deep down desire to work with that particular community. Does that make sense? So if I want to work with middle-aged men who like fast cars, I will go to those groups because maybe I have some kind of solution for this particular target audience. That's what I'm going to be talking about on my podcast. I go into those groups not just because I want them to listen to my podcast, because I want to find more of the people that I want to serve. And the more you can be inside those spaces, somebody's invariably going to ask you, what do you do? And that's your opportunity to share. That's the organic and word of mouth advertising, still some of the best advertising, period. You can put it on Facebook and try and share it there and do all of those little things. That's cool. Maybe your friends, mom, dad, cousins, they might watch or listen. But organic growth happens when you begin to pick up search traffic. And so there are some other things that you can do from a title perspective and a description perspective that will really help. But all of that still comes back to, why are you doing it? And who are you doing it for? Target audience, value proposition. People are inherently selfish. They want to know what's in it for me. They're not coming to your podcast because they like you. They come to your podcast because you're going to give them an answer to something. Or you're going to give them some entertainment. I don't know. You got to figure that part out. And I would dare say that the Church of God has answers to issues that the world is facing. If we package it, they might actually find it when they search for it, and then it can have impact on their lives. All right. Title and description.
How you doing? First of all, I just want to commend you for your accomplishments. I think that what you're doing is great and it's amazing, and I appreciate it. And I just want to congratulate on you. But my question, just as pertaining to the whole podcast thing, and like I said, I'm Seventh-day Adventist Christian, just like all of us, but I'm still early in my walk. So there's things as fresh coming from the world, there's things I will understand that maybe somebody that has been doing this a long time probably wouldn't. But to my understanding, I just feel as though it may be counterproductive if, like you said, the Church of God has answers to questions that the world needs, and I truly believe that. I agree with you with that. But I think that presenting it in a way that is twin and is similar to the world, I believe it's counterproductive. And I think that I do believe that technology and podcasting, YouTube, is a way to do ministry. But I think if we don't keep Christ in the center and, Christ and the kingdom, and the church and what we are to do in this generation as a people in the forefront of it, then I think it'll be really easy to stray away from it and we'll lose the message. And going back to one of the things that you said about being precise about your message and, your topic, I do believe that, picking, fishing, gaming, one thing and being direct to that target audience is efficient in the way of creating YouTube and having it be successful. But I think, like you said, the Church of God and Christianity and everything that we stand for is a lot more than just, house or, family. There's a lot of aspects. There's nutrition, there's church life, there's temptations, things like that. And so
yeah. So let me cut in. Thank you so much for the comment. I truly appreciate it. Right. And there's a lot that you said there I have no argument with. None. Zero. Here's what I want to share. The truth is, I don't know your story. The most attractive thing to get people to come to whatever it is you're going to put out there, and it doesn't matter what you use, if it's a podcast, if it's a YouTube channel, is going to be your authentic, real story. And who's the author of your story? Somebody said you. That is incorrect, because I did not sign up for traffic on the way here. Who's the author of your story? So if my content is about the author, is about my story and its author, what am I pointing people to? So I don't want us to miss this, because I think these are sometimes these are some of the questions and conversations that I get into, and I think they're all well-meaning. But I started by asking, is it a Christian podcaster or a podcast that is Christian? What's the difference? You know what traditionally the difference is? The Christian podcast is just talking about Christian things, no story. So what do we resonate with? So if the invitation looks like you're broken and I'm fixed, come and learn from me because you're going to go to hell. If that's what the narrative is, why would anybody come? Are you seeing my point? If the narrative is I'm just 5 minutes less broken than you, and I just want to share with you how I got these 5 minutes ahead. Because I believe that there's a God who can help us both. And because we have the same struggle, I think he can lead us both to victory. That is the type of invitation I know works, because that's what worked for me. And so I shy away from some of the other types of conversations that we have around these platforms and some of the things that we struggle with. I'll be clear. My dad came out of a heavy reggae lifestyle. For him, he can't really go back into reggae because for him, that looked a certain way. Does it make sense? I don't mind a little Bob Marley. I don't have the same struggle. You get what I'm saying? If there are 20 alcoholics in your family, you might want to stay away from. And the people that God might be uniquely gifting you to reach, I don't want you to miss that part, might be found in your struggle. If you will allow people in to see it. I know I got to shut up now.
All right. Come on, preacher. So we have one more question. One more question.
So I know you said that one reason why podcasts fail is because of inconsistency. I was wondering if another reason could be that they fail because people do it for views, and then after a while they get bored of it, and then what can someone like that do to kind of prevent?
No, your answer. So your answer to why podcasts fail is correct. If your why is views, it's externally motivated. External motivations, they have varying results. You've got to have something that's deep down within. Like I have a guy I'm working with, and there's like 3 people that show up. It's like his podcasts have like 10 views. He doesn't care. Because he has a vested interest in the community that he's speaking to. So your why will get you over the hurdle. If you think this thing is going to be simple and easy and I'm just going to put content out there and everybody's going to like it and I'm going to go viral, please believe that is not the truth. It's just not. And so if your why is the numbers will go like this. I had a video do well that I didn't want to do well. That was not the video. I put my blood, sweat, and tears into these other videos and nothing happened. What I'm saying is you've got to have something deeper to fall back on. And so I think you absolutely accurately assessed that those are some of the things of why some of these podcasts fail. At the beginning of the pandemic, we saw an unprecedented amount of podcasts launched. You know why? Because everybody was at home. And as soon as outside opened up again, some of those podcasts did well. There's 1 or 2 of them that I used to follow, and I'm like, where did they go? So the failure isn't so much that the podcast wasn't popular, it's the inconsistency, which is what you were talking about before. I just want to say a word of thanks to all of you for your time and attention. I hope they invite me back. This was phenomenal. And I'm looking forward to meeting you guys tomorrow during the breakout sessions, and we will do some hands-on podcasting. All right?
All right. Give it up for Pastor Kirk one more time. Thank you so much. That was awesome. Tomorrow is going to be a full day. It's going to be awesome. We are meeting here at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Those of you who are staying in the hotel, you'll have breakfast there. Then over here, we'll have our session. We'll have worship with the church family here in Fort Myers, where Justin Koo will be speaking. Tomorrow morning, Nicole Dominguez will be the presenter. And also Adam Fenner will give a spotlight from the North American division. He's the vice president for social media or something like that. But anyways, he'll be here with us tomorrow morning as well. Guys, thank you so much for being a part of this evening. Before we leave, though, let's have a word of prayer. Let's pray real quick. Holy and great God, Lord, I thank you so much for what you've done here tonight. I pray that you bless every single person that's here. May they hopefully just embrace a gem or two that they received tonight so that they may become everything that you want them to be, Lord. Watch over them now as they go in their separate ways, as they go to the hotel room or wherever they came from. Give them traveling mercies and bring them back tomorrow morning as well. Thank you, Lord. We pray in your name. Amen. God bless you guys. I'll see you tomorrow.